up, rocking like grandma's favorite chair. It is the Sixers Talk podcast brought to you by Wilmington University. WilmU Works. Danny Pommells, Noah Levick. Check out Noah's work on NBC Sports Philadelphia.com. A great time to be a Sixers fan, folks. And there have been 3 games since the last podcast, a back-to-back on Monday and Tuesday, home opener on Saturday. And Noah, when we did the last podcast and the Sixers came back from a double-digit fourth quarter deficit against the Boston Celtics, I didn't know that would be the theme for the season to this point, because they've got 3 come from behind wins in the fourth quarter where they were down majorly. They were down 19 points here in the second half against the Washington Wizards and came back to win that game in overtime. So let's just start with the most recent game and work our way backwards. Man, what a game last night against the Wizards, as Joel Embiid was still in the minutes restriction, but Tyrese Maxey, Edgecombe, Quentin Grimes combined a great team effort to get this win 139-134 in overtime against the Wizards, who, maybe ain't your grandma's Wizards. This ain't quite the same team who has been underachieving and scraping the bottom of the barrel. On so far this season. It's only been 4 games. We won't get overly excited, but the excitement definitely lies in the cardiac come from behind nature of this Sixers team so far this season. But I gotta get an honest opinion from you. You had to be surprised that they came back and won that one last night. You might have said, okay, they came back against the Hornets at home, but this is the second half of a back-to-back. You can't get Joel Embiid in the game for defensive purposes. Daryl Morey's running through the entire roster, basically, of available players, and they pull out this win in a way that you really wouldn't have expected, and they were giving it to the fans at the Wizards Arena afterward. It was just a whole motley crew of action going on. What did you make of it, Noah, and how surprised were you that they were able to pull this one out?
Yeah, I try to not be hyperbolic, try to, capture things accurately. This was stunning. I didn't see it coming whatsoever. I think I even said to Kai Carlin sitting next to me, I'm not so sure it makes sense to even have Joel Embiid in the game early in the fourth quarter. What's the point, really? They're down, 18, 19 points. Clearly, everyone was wrong. This game was one that the Sixers could find a way to pull out. And yeah, as you noted, they needed so many guys to just be great down the stretch of that game. Tyrese Maxey's still averaging close to 40 points and has played at least 41 minutes in all 4 games. And this is an Allen Iverson-ish start for him, without question. And Quentin Grimes was great on both ends. And to me, Edgecombe was quite arguably the story of the night. I mean, right now he's one of the best shot blockers in the game statistically, and when he gets in that shot blocking zone, it legitimately feels like he's swatting everything that the opposition puts up there. So yes, we knew the Sixers team had a lot of talent, a lot of offensive firepower, but the context here was a lot of tired legs and a lot of reason to think the game was already over. But they certainly have, I think, backed up their preseason words about being a high-effort team that doesn't quit, and very quickly in the season that has coalesced into their identity with these really improbable comebacks. So yeah, 4 games in, the Sixers are the very best team in the Eastern Conference, and I don't think anyone expected we'd be saying that.
Yes, they're one of 2 undefeated Eastern Conference teams. The Bulls are 3-0 here on the early part of the season. But Noah, we got to talk about Tyrese Maxey, obviously, over 37 points a game, leading the NBA in scoring. And there's a reason Joel Embiid calls him the franchise, to see the way he's playing now, what he's gone through to get to this point, the Doc Rivers, tough love, as well as, it was a period where he wasn't getting the calls and the benefit of the doubt from the referees, maybe got snubbed for some all-star votes and attention. But forget about all-star, he's in the MVP conversation here in the early going of the NBA, just really willing this team to victories. Like you said, he talked about in the preseason, just about the fact that this is going to be a team that leaves all out on the floor. And there could be a lot of lip service, and a lot of expectations tied to those things, but to actually live it out on the court and to actualize those things is a whole different story. But I don't know if it's just the way he plays or how the teammates feed off of him, but it is just contagious the way he's playing, and it just seems to infiltrate other guys. And you got a guy like Quentin Grimes coming off the bench, pouring in 19 points in the second half, huge shots, everybody's celebrating and whatnot. Is it just like a Maxey and it trickles down type of effect? Because that's really what I'm seeing, is that he's kind of setting the tone for how this team's playing.
I think that's absolutely the case. Yeah, I mean, we've heard for a while that he's a natural leader, but also that he had a ways to go in that department as far as feeling comfortable and feeling like a veteran and someone who could call things out and be bold and very vocal at moments. And I think he's clearly made great progress on that front. But look, like to me, I'm still the most impressed by the number of minutes he's playing. Like this is truly Allen Iverson kind of minutes, Allen Iverson kind of production from Tyrese Maxey early this season. And I think it's not shocking that the shooting has really bounced back. Like you look at, years, I think 2 through 4 in his career, he was over 40% from three on over 6 attempts a game. And he's just gotten better and better to me as far as the shooting variety, the ability to hit the super deep ones, and to be great off both the catch and the dribble. So yeah, he's the main guy right now, and a large part of that, of course, is Joel Embiid just isn't playing fourth quarter. So Tyrese Maxey needs to lead the charge in many of these instances, but he's of course not doing it alone. Like we go to some of these comebacks, and during those brief Maxey list stints, there's been sort of unlikely ways that they've held it together. Maybe Andre Drummond has a big night. Obviously, Dembona was huge off the bench here. Eric Gordon in his first minutes of the season hit a couple big shots.
Justin
So
Edwards
Justin Edwards had a really timely, important contribution.
in the Charlotte game.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
Charlotte game. So a lot of guys who are playing a big role, but very appropriate to highlight the one who's averaging nearly 38 points a game. I think 8-ish assists per game as well. Still remaining a really low turnover guy, which has been consistent throughout his career. And it was funny. I asked Embiid what he makes of Maxey getting some of those MVP chants, and he said it's amazing. He's super proud of Maxey, but he's got to make the free throws. He says he's been a little shaky at the line when he gets those chants. He's not used to it. But Embiid, I think, genuinely, it's important to him that Tyrese Maxey has been so good. He said, I felt like I saw something in this kid when maybe some others didn't early in his career. And he feels validated that Maxey has risen to this level. And of course, is hoping to see more moving forward. So definitely an impossibly great start for Tyrese Maxey. And I don't think he's going to average 38 points a game, but who knows? Like this team has obviously exceeded our expectations in a big way thus far. And Tyrese Maxey, I think, is first and foremost when we're talking about guys who are just playing out of their minds right now.
And you know, um, you talk about the point production, likely not the last, the excessive minutes a game. He and VJ Edgecombe, here we are almost 10 minutes into the podcast, haven't mentioned his name, but just goes to show how fantastic Maxey has been and how exciting, these finishes have been. But Edgecombe and Maxey playing Boku minutes in that backcourt, and people are like, "Oh my gosh! Like, where does Paul George? Where does Jared McCain fit in?" Less so Paul George, but Jared McCain will be a great person to alleviate some of the strain on the amount of time that these guys have to play, because he's a great rotation piece that can fit in and take some of those minutes, and they probably wouldn't skip a beat with as far as the shooting production and as far as the offensive production. So I think that's a great point to make, that yes, they're playing out of their minds, ridiculous comebacks, but you can't Tom Thibodeau these guys into the ground, so to speak, and have the imbalance in the amount of minutes and their contribution. So I think that's a an easy connection to make. Is McCain comes back, the minutes are a bit less. There isn't as much pressure on the production for Edgecombe, Maxey, Quentin Grimes in that way.
I think that's absolutely true, but I do expect Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe
They
are
ain't
going
coming off the floor. They ain't coming
they're
off
going
the
to play
floor.
many minutes this season. I agree it'll in all likelihood go down a little bit, but you look at Nick Nurse's track record, guys like Kyle Lowry in his prime, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, they were near the top of the NBA in minutes. And Nick Nurse said at the very beginning of this season, he's measuring VJ Edgecombe's success in terms of minutes. He wants him to get reps. He wants him to learn through mistakes. And he believes that that's how you grow as a player. And of course, Edgecombe has done so well thus far that there haven't really been situations where you're like, man, why is he still on the floor? So I think you did see in his first NBA back to back, the legs were a bit tired. He struggled a little bit to grind through it. And I'm curious, whether he adjusts a little bit to the challenges of the NBA schedule and how hard that can be. But I think those minutes are going to remain awfully high for these guards in large part just because they're easily the Sixers' best players, and the Sixers understand that's their identity as a team, that the guards are going to lead the way. But I think just a large amount of credit should be given to the conditioning of these guys. And Tyrese Maxey wasn't talking about himself, but when he was asked about how they were able to pull this off and what's been responsible for the comebacks, he said, we're in really good shape. And I think that's pretty much true across the board. Kelly Oubre Jr. has had several games over 40 minutes, and the effort has remained exceptional. I think he's had double-digit rebound games in back-to-back nights, and it's easier said than done to maintain a really high level of competitiveness and effort when the average elite athlete would just be absolutely wiped out and have very little left to give. So Tyrese Maxey, I think, has always been great on that front, but it seems he's getting better and better at the play not dipping at all when he surely is a little bit tired. It seems like, if anything, he's been able to find an extra gear when all logic would suggest his jumpers are going to fall short and his play is going to drop off a little bit. Just doesn't seem to be the case with him. And he's clearly one of the best conditioned athletes in the world, based on all the evidence thus far.
Yeah, excellent point, because not only are they playing an overtime on a back-to-back night, he has 43 and 39 on back-to-back nights in an overtime game. And he probably still had more left in the tank the way he was playing. Particularly, they fall behind in that OT. They go on a 10-0 run to make it to overtime. They fall behind by 5 points. And it's starting to look like they're out of gas and kind of the sky is falling a little bit. But he goes baseline among the skyscrapers and gets this reverse layup where he switches hands on the baseline, where I'm like, I know a Dembona would have blocked that shot had it been like, but somehow he sneaks it through Sar, and I forgot who else was over there, but maybe it was George, but he sneaks it through those guys to get a much needed bucket for this team. And all of a sudden, the tide changes. So I talk about that trickle down effect and him like setting the tone. And it's just, yes, you mentioned Iverson so many times. Like, that is the Iverson way of, like, leading by example, going into the teeth of defense, the fearlessness, still having something when people think that, the the well is dry. It just was such a great performance, so much fun to watch. I want to continue on the Adem Bona vein. He only had 2 points, but he gets this great tip dunk, plays this great defense in the fourth quarter and overtime with 5 blocks. And it's something new, Noah, and with your love for tennis, I thought you could, shed some light on this. I had never known about or wasn't aware of the NBA Core IQ, which seems like like the Hawkeye system that they use in tennis, where they reviewed that Bona block where they thought it was a goaltend, but he clearly got it before it hit the glass. Was that CJ McCollum shot? I forgot who shot the ball, but
Thanks. Yeah.
okay. So he gets it before they use the NBA court IQ, which I don't know, was that something that they showed on the Jumbotron, or was that were you guys clued into that or what? But it was new to me, so I figured I would bring it up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a tough spot because the technology helped them to get the call right and be very precise in tracking that the ball did not hit the backboard first. But it doesn't really feel fair that you get a clean block and the end result is a jump ball. And then the Wizards won that jump ball and had a chance to win the game. But fortunately for the Sixers, Chris Middleton missed with his attempt at a game winner.
Quentin
But yeah,
Grimes locking it
yeah,
down.
Quentin Grimes had many outstanding defensive possessions late, blocked a Bub Carrington three, dove on the floor to recover a loose ball, and then the defense was strong on Middleton there in the final possession of regulation. So it does strike me that quite a few of Adem Bona's blocks, you've got the opponent claiming that he goaltended it, and I think part of that is he swings at everything. He's willing to be a little bit risky and have the occasional goaltend. But I think a lot of it is he just gets higher than anyone is really accustomed to. Like he's often swatting that ball very close to its peak, and the vertical is over 40 inches. The timing is exceptional, and he's already one of the NBA's better shot blockers statistically in a small sample size. And to me, I just wonder, can it get even better? Like, he's 22 years old. And he does have moments where, he's not on his A game necessarily energy wise, or he's just, a little less than his best. Can he be a little more consistent? Can he cut down the fouls a little, of course? And is there even more that he can do as a rim protector? I think that's an intriguing question. And it was near the top of my mind last night because I'm not sure I've ever seen any better shot blocking performance in the fourth quarter of the game. I mean, the first block didn't come until under 7 minutes left, and he finishes the game with 5. So he has extraordinary talent there. And when the Sixers need a little bit of juice, he's a great guy to turn to because he's going to be happy to give everything he's got in the energy department and in the shot blocking department. So I think it could be a big night in his career. Right? To me, at the end of that game, I was like, man, when his career is over, he's gonna remember this one. I think it was special. I think you saw how happy his teammates were for him on the tip dunk, kind of mobbing him as the Sixers went to their bench. And that this is a player with so much talent, and also a guy who's doing more than just flashing potential. Like he's really helping the Sixers win some games here early in his second season.
Are you comfortable with his role? Because it was interesting that with Dominic Barlow out, who we saw start against Charlotte, who has a elbow laceration that I'm waiting to get more details on, or like exactly what happened. I haven't seen any video on how it happened. No updates. Did he get stitches? I'm waiting to hear some details on that. But he started against the Orlando Magic, came off the bench here against the Wizards. Is he more of a energy guy off the bench, or do you feel like him next to Joel might be a better role for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are cases for both sides of that argument. As we said in the preseason, the idea of why he'd fit next to Embiid is he does the dirty work, Embiid does the skill work. I think right now Nick Nurse is pleased with what he's getting from Andre Drummond, and he doesn't want to have many nights where Drummond is just a non-factor. I think Drummond does look a lot healthier and a lot better than he did last year. So yeah, my sense is Nurse is still experimenting, still figuring it out. I honestly think it has been a situation where both Drummond and Bona have looked like players that you want to use every game, at least thus far this season. I think it's also tricky because, of course, Embiid still has this minutes limit. So in the back of your mind, you're thinking, okay, what are we going to do when those minutes are up in the middle of the third quarter. And the answer has been kind of go with the flow of the game and see what makes sense in the moment. Of course, Drummond was fantastic one of these nights in providing that proverbial spark with the rebounding and the veteran presence and physicality. And then Nurse's gut was that, okay, Bono wasn't very good in the first half, but we need to get a lot of stops. We need to dial up the intensity defensively, and let's see what the kid can do. So, yeah, I don't think there's a clear answer as to how the Sixers should play things behind Embiid. I would imagine we'll get a little more clarity whenever those minutes do increase. The minutes restriction, is lifted. But for now, Nurse is kind of trying to push the right buttons night by night, and he's done a great job. Like to me, the game where Eric Gordon hit a couple of threes, I was very surprised to see Gordon even in the game, and it ended up being a great decision by Nick Nurse. So yeah, all that little instinctive stuff with how he's subbing and what his rotation looks like. He's been on the money thus far. I mean, he used 11 players in DC trying to get little contributions here and there on the second night of a back-to-back, and the decisions have been good, and he'll hope to continue to have a good read on his team moving forward. And I think he's still learning what he's got behind Embiid, but he's had a lot to like thus far with Bona and Drummond and how they've played.
Yeah, give Nurse credit, earning his pay, pushing the right buttons, and adjusting and shifting with the things the Sixers have had to do to make these comeback wins. And only one win against the Orlando Magic, which was surprising considering Orlando was one of the teams that have been the darling of a lot of these analysts and people, picking who will finish where in the Eastern Conference. I've seen them as high as number 2 in the Eastern Conference leading into this season. But the Sixers, that was their easiest win so far this year. But we'll delve a whole lot more into this coming up, more on Embiid, Quentin Grimes, and all of the above. We want to show some love to our title sponsor, though, Wilmington University. We wouldn't be here without them. They are here with us every step of the way. Do you have college credits but no degree? Complete your degree at Wilmington University, where your dream is our mission. Learn more at wilmu.edu. All right, back here on the Sixers Talk podcast, Noah, and I don't know, man. They negotiated Quentin Grimes really hard in the offseason. It's looking more and more like that is shaping up to be a mistake. If you could have had this guy for 2 years and $34 million with the purity of his shot, the relentlessness that he shows when the shot isn't falling, his commitment to the defensive end, and we thought that we wouldn't see that March Quentin Grimes as much here, with this Sixers team. But whether it's starting, coming off the bench, it seems like his skill set, fits really well with this team, is very complementary to the other players in the backcourt. And the dude is clutch, bro. The dude is willing to take the big shot in the big moment. He is usually guarded by guys that are bigger than him. And it really doesn't matter. He's got the snatchback dribble. He's got the behind the back, the in and out with the offhand. He's taking it to the basket. And man, that jumper, when he gets that follow through and hangs that thing up there, you expect it to go in. Just talk about his contribution, the gigantic 3 in overtime, and just what he's been doing with this team so far to help contribute to these wins and really to come from behind victories.
Yeah, it was funny because I was thinking back to the last game the Sixers played in DC, which was the Jeff Doughton Jr. game in April.
Mm-hmm.
And Quentin Grimes had one of his worst games of the season, shot 4 for 17. In this game, he started 1 for 5, and you're just wondering whether, I don't know, there's something about DC or, whether he's going to find his footing. And then a switch clearly flipped. He sensed the game was winnable, and the impact was unreal on both ends of the court. It really felt like every single possession he was making a winning play of some kind. And yeah, as you said, there's the jumper. isn't necessarily textbook in the sense if he has a little side spin, maybe the release isn't exactly what you teach, but there is something about when he
All
vaults
net,
up
bro. They
there
are
and
all net.
yeah, it looks automatic at times. And Nick Nurse has this phrase he sometimes uses of, he can throw that thing in there, he can vault up and shoot it. Certainly applies to Quentin Grimes. You rarely see him get blocked. You rarely see him bothered by a defender seemingly with his jumpers, and he's capable of making very tough, tightly contested shots. It's basically responsible for sending this game to overtime, tied it up with I think 39 seconds left. Bona set a good smart flare screen. It was a good play call by Nurse. And but yeah, that jumper was nothing but net. So this is exactly what the Sixers hoped they'd be getting from Grimes early in the season. I think it's looked like the right decision to bring him off the bench, but give him a ton of minutes with that role. And yeah, it hasn't really seemed like an issue that he missed, the start of training camp and had that whole protracted contract situation. He's obviously been really professional and is just a gamer. Loves to compete, and I think is really happy that he's now playing in games where the Sixers have a chance. Because of course, when he was scoring a bunch of points last year, Sixers were still losing many of those games by quite a few points. Now he's getting a chance to contribute for a winning team and having a great time doing so.
With no training camp. It wasn't even there for training camp. Missed all the Abu Dhabi stuff, but came in shape and ready to ball out. Also want to get a feel from you of the tenor of the arena because the Sixers are hitting these shots. They're going on this run. And the cutaways and some people in the crowd are behind over guys' shoulders. You can see there was one dude that had his hand on his head, just like beside himself with some of the shots that were made. What was it like in the arena, particularly, and people were sticking around all the way through the OT? Like, what was it like in the arena?
A lot of Sixers fans. I mean, they definitely were the loudest voices in there once the comeback started to roll. I mean, it was funny too. You saw someone was apparently pretty vocal behind the Sixers bench,
Right.
and the Sixers gave it to the guy a little bit
In
once.
a Jordan Poole jersey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no longer Wizard. Once they sealed that win, so yeah, it was a good atmosphere. And look, like the Wizards for the most part played a really good game. They're one of the youngest teams in the league. Alex Sarr had one of the best nights of his career. I think 31-10, and
Keyshawn George looks like the real deal too. I
yeah,
haven't watched a whole lot of him, but
he's had a great start
yeah.
to his second season. So it was just a good, entertaining game. So I think even the Wizards fans who were disappointed that the Sixers came back still were really invested and really caring about those final minutes. Of course, they've still got to earn back some of those fans. It wasn't a packed arena, but no, for an early season game for a team that's not expected to contend, it was an awesome atmosphere. And yeah, the traveling Sixers fans had a ton to do with that. As I said, you heard those MVP chants for Maxey. There was a big roar when Grimes tied the game, when Bona had the putback dunk. Sixers fans traveled well. I mean, you can tell they're excited about this team. And yeah, if you made the trip to DC, you got to watch a fantastic game here.
Wow, what a game here against the Wizards. I'm curious though, Noah, with the way things have gone so far this season, they need to have just a win like Orlando, right? Like another win where they don't need to come back because this isn't like textbook stuff. I mean, if you're Nick Nurse, you're still some things you're trying to work through and figure out with this team so that they can be a little more consistent through those quarters. And the third quarter, once again, was really rough for this team. And you could say that for 3 out of the 4 games, that the third quarter was a point where I didn't think they had it in them against the Wizards like they did against the Celtics. I still had some hope. It was a little bit tighter. It was a little bit tighter against Charlotte. Oh, I guess Charlotte was also what do you have to say? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to find the silver lining here, but they definitely have some things they need to work through, particularly with that third quarter and how they come out of the locker room.
Yeah, for me, the biggest issue is just defensively. I think in the crunch time moments, the defense has been great. The ability to contain the ball and to make opponents work for their points has been strong. But for the majority of these games, they've conceded some easy ones. They've had some rough moments here and there in transition, and they've looked small on quite a few occasions. So we all knew that would be a challenge, and I think still a work in progress as far as finding solutions. I asked Nurse, like, does he see variety as sort of the identity defensively like it is offensively? And he said, yeah, we haven't turned to much of our defensive toolbox yet. We haven't implemented everything, but absolutely, given we're the size we are, we do have to do some problem solving in terms of how to construct our defense, how to get stops. So I think that's a big area for growth. I think in theory it should be bolstered when Paul George is back here, when the Sixers have a long wing who even last season was a well above average defender. But for now, they need guys to be scrappy, to be competitive, and to hold their own against players who are a lot bigger than them. So, obviously there's been encouraging moments. Obviously, Adem Bona's rim protection has helped a lot, but I think there are still some important unresolved questions with how they can be good enough defensively. To me, this looks like a really high-powered offensive team, but you do still have to get some stops in order to win games, in order to not fall into huge deficits like they have thus far.
We finished the last podcast, and the Sixers beat the Boston Celtics. Joel Embiid didn't play well. Only made one basket. Wasn't sure what to expect going into that Charlotte game, but man, that touch from outside was so pure. The minutes, the points per minute were right there. Classic Joel Embiid. And then he sits out Orlando, and then same thing, really the same type of production offensively here against the Wizards. But the defense hasn't quite been lacking. People have been noticing him jumping off he jumped higher, high five in a Adem Bona that he probably did on the court for any of the defensive contests or defensive stops out on the floor. How does he look to you, and what do you make of how awesome he looks offensively and the touch on the shot? He's a free throw merchant that comes with his game, but also the contrast between his offense and his defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been pretty darn positive overall. It's literally been over a point per minute the last two games. He had 20 and 20 minutes against Charlotte, 25 and 23 minutes against the Wizards. Very few players who are capable of that. And of course, Joel Embiid had that as his norm during the MVP season. And we wondered whether it was still in there. I think the answer is an emphatic yes. He can be just an overwhelming scorer and a complete mismatch against many, many teams in this league. But yeah, agree. Like the defense overall has been far below his best. Alex Sarr scored on him quite a few times in isolation. Even Marvin Bagley III got some buckets on Embiid. And yeah, I would say that my impression has been there's still some caution and some hesitation as far as what his body's capable of and what's comfortable for him. But I think often his presence and his intelligence go a long way defensively. So I'd expect eventually those traits to shine a little more than they have thus far. But I'd say overall his trajectory seems really positive. No known issues with the knee, which is the most important thing. And now for him, it's just he's begging for no more restriction. I mean, he was again really candid about that last night. He said it's extremely annoying. He wants to be out. He's excited about the way things are going, but he wants to play a larger role, and he's going to continue very publicly making that case, seemingly until the Sixers actually allow him to be out there and to get in a better rhythm than he has thus far. So, that's his hope. He got 3 more minutes last night, but as he said, he was a cheerleader when the game mattered. Very, very joyful cheerleader, had a great time on the sidelines, very supportive of his teammates, but I think, like any superstar, he's not thrilled that he's on the sideline when these games are being decided.
Do we know when the restriction might be removed? Is there any information that way?
No, no,
Okay.
he doesn't know, and I think he wished he knew. He wished there was a clearer understanding of what his path is moving forward. It doesn't seem like it's a rapid ramp up here, right? Like it's 20
No,
minutes,
you can't say
20
ramp
minutes.
up.
Yeah, the ramp up is rampant. So 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 23 minutes. I don't know. I mean, I think you'd assume that maybe in a week we're at 28, just based on what we've seen thus far. But I think it's the case that there's really not a lot of clarity, um, even in terms of what Embiid knows. So he's just like continuing to argue that he doesn't need a minutes restriction, and he's continuing to be told no, like this is how it is, and you've got to deal with it. And he said if they weren't winning these games, he'd feel some type of way about it. I mean, those were
Hmm.
his words, but they're winning, and that is ultimately what's most important to him. So he's happy for now, but is pretty determined to make his case that things need to change.
Regardless of how things go, his the way they've handled Embiid definitely sets a precedent on how the rest of these guys will reappear in the lineup. We saw Trendon Wofford make his first appearance from a hamstring injury restriction. Paul George will definitely be on a minutes restriction. We've seen that when he's returned from past injuries. You're going to assume Jared McCain is going to have some type of restriction as well when he returns from a UCL, the thumb issue that he had, surgery. So it just, it just sets an expectation for the rest of those guys. I want to ask you about something though that was floating around social media. Uh, the Morris twins, Marcus and Markeith, were on a stream. It seemed like they were sitting next to each other. It seemed like, and they were talking and answering questions from people in the chat. I don't know if you saw this, but Marcus's point, and I'm paraphrasing, and he was complimentary to Joel, but he was saying that he's never seen a player of Embiid's caliber, and this is from his time seeing all these players that he's played with, great players, uh, and their work ethic. He's never seen a player of Embiid's caliber have less of a worth ethic, but have the same level of performance as these other great players. And the evidence and the that he gave for that was the fact that when he dropped 70 against Wemby and the Spurs, he said Joel showed up like 23 minutes before tip off. Like he just comes in, and I we can definitely corroborate that because we have a feed in the content room at NBC Sports Philadelphia that shows the tunnel when guys walk in because we use it for B-roll, to for the highlights that we do, and it helps accentuate some of the things that go on in the game and what have you. So Embiid comes in 23 minutes before the game, drops 70 points against Wemby. What do you think that says about Joel? To me, it is super Iverson coded. Like that is about the most Allen Iverson-esque thing that he could probably do to show up, come in, have this you know, uh innuendo that he doesn't really work hard, or the idea that he isn't putting in as much effort as maybe some of these other great players, but then to come out and drop 70 points in an all-time Sixers game, all-time NBA game. What does that say to you? What do you think of when you hear those things?
Yeah, I don't believe he's warmed up once this season pregame either. It seems like that just might be out of his routine. I don't think it's normal that he shows up like shortly before tip
Probably
off.
not. Yeah, no, not
Yeah,
normal,
I
but
think
still, just to be
that
able
was
to.
probably like I don't think he's like pushing it like Allen Iverson maybe did back in the day. I do think like he's checking the basic boxes of being a professional who shows up in time to play the game.
But to
Yeah, I
have
do.
that deep of a bag to be able to go to that part of your game where you're like, no warm up. I'll show up about 30 minutes beforehand and have one of the greatest games you've ever seen, type of thing.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some nuance to it because obviously he had to work really hard to become so skilled. Like there have been many, many hours in the summer with Drew Hanlon studying film, adding to his game, becoming an incredible mid-range shooter for a big man like that didn't just magically appear. He deserves credit for honing all those skills, especially as someone who started basketball at 15, 16 years old.
Yeah, man. When I look at how he's performed, I'm thankful that he is a 76er, considering all that he's gone through to get to this point and everything that's happened. And on top of that, you know, you look at what's happened with other guys who have walked his same footsteps, Zydrunas Ilgauskas and Yao Ming and big men like that who haven't been able to have as much success as Embiid, even though they've had maybe the same type of potential or expectations surrounding them. So I continue to be an Embiid fan, and am a big fan of the way he goes about his business when he is on the basketball court, because he's fun to watch. Sixers fans deserve it after all that they've been through with him. And hopefully this team can figure it all out. And this will be the season that they put it all together. But you can't be coming back from double-digit deficits in the fourth quarter each and every game. But we will see how things play out against Boston on Halloween night. Come out and support the fellas as they return home. Should be fun. Costumes galore. But thank you everyone for listening and watching the Sixers Talk podcast. Check out Noah Levick's work on NBC Sports Philadelphia.com. And we will see you next time. Take care.